Hello, welcome. Okay, so I'm going to do an archetype reading this evening. So I pre-pulled 5 archetype cards. So the first one we have is the Bardo. Second one is Agape. Third is the Mountain. I love the imagery in these cards. It's so pretty. Then we have Kairos, or Kairos, I think. Probably saying that wrong. And then Eros. I'm definitely saying these wrong. Sorry. I apologize. Okay, so the Bardo. This card talks about this space between life and death. So like this transition between life and death. And I think this is coming up because you are experiencing a transition right now. I think one cycle is ending and another cycle is beginning. And this is kind of like the void, the space in between. And Spirit really wants you to take a higher perspective right now with this space that's being created between, this transition. It's about taking a higher perspective, forgiving the pain, the past, the hurt, forgiving the unforgivable, seeing the unseen, saying the unsaid, loving the unloved. Is there pain that you're still holding on to? Are there things that maybe have gone left unsaid between you and another person? It's like taking this higher perspective. You think, say your soul at the end of your life, you pass on and you haven't quite gone on to the next realm, whatever that is, and you're in this in-between space and you're looking back on your life. Do you think that soul is holding on to anger? Are they holding on to hatred? Are they holding on to hurt? Are they holding on to resentment? My guess is no. They're looking back on their life and they're just remembering every experience for how beautiful it was, for what lessons they learned from it. It's about having this higher perspective in your life. Just taking a step back from the everyday, just BS that goes on, because it's so easy to just get bogged down with it, with the drama, everyone else's drama, conflict, this or that, we really need to start looking at things from this higher perspective of in the end, does this really matter? Maybe I can show myself a little bit more compassion. Maybe I can show others a little bit more compassion as well. And this card also talks about that the veil is very thin, in which this time of year the veil is very thin. And talking about how when the veil is thin, it can be a remarkable time for healing. So I think this card really is talking about how we should really be taking some time right now to reflect, reflecting on the past year, really thinking about things. This cycle is ending, a new cycle is soon beginning. What are we ready to forgive? What are we ready to heal? What are we ready to send love to? Just let it go. Because this next card here is all about gratitude. So this card talks about when your mouth is agape. It's open because it's so awestruck by beauty. It's looking at, it says something in the book about how it's seeing the earthly as heavenly. And I think that's so beautiful. Just, it reminded me of, I was walking to work the other morning, and it was like a beautiful fall day. It was dark, rainy, soggy. I just had this feeling of overwhelming love and gratitude for my life, for my purpose, just for the beauty around me. Just like, oh, the sky, I just felt spirit running through my soul, and it was just such a beautiful moment, and I was just so grateful. And gratitude is such an important part of the journey. It really is. Just being grateful for where you are right now. You're in the bardo. You're in the void right now. You're in this space in between. You're closing up one cycle. You're going to start a new one. Let's talk about what we're grateful for. I'm so grateful for the pain, for the hurt, betrayal even. You know what? Because it got me to exactly where I am right now. And where I am is a beautiful place. And maybe it's not where I want to be, maybe I'm not on my way. I'm not at my destination, I'm just at the beginning of my journey, but I'm grateful. I'm so grateful. So Spirit just wants to remind us to just stay in the attitude of gratitude. As cheesy as it sounds, it really does, having a higher perspective and just staying grateful are just like super, it's like having a superpower, It's a superpower that anyone can have, that anyone can access at any point in time. Okay, and the next we have the Mountain. I love this card. So this talks about the Mountain can do a couple things. You can climb the mountain. It can inspire you to rise to new heights. It can inspire you to have these peak experiences. But it also talks about how being at the top of the mountain can also be isolating and may cause you to look down on other people because you've ascended so far and maybe they haven't. And so it just kind of warns of that, that there can be, this kind of inflated sense of self when you ascend and you ascend and you ascend, and, maybe you're growing at a faster pace than everyone else. So that's just a warning that the mountain bears. But it talks about how some people think that the journey above the mountain is getting to the top. And that's the fool's path, because the real beauty of the mountain are the jewels that lie below. That's where the real treasure of the mountain is. So I think it's really talking about going deep, doing the work, doing the shadow work. It's all about doing taking action and rising and all of that, and going on the journey. And yes, we love all of that. But really, the real journey is when we reflect, when we go down into the core, the miner's magic of the mountain. That's where the true gems lie. So this really, talks about sometimes, it's in the darkest times that we can find the most beauty. I think this time of year is just it does always feel like such a transitional time of year, because it is, and I feel like there's a reason that, Thanksgiving, we celebrate harvest, being grateful during this time of year, because these cards really relate to each other. This time we're in this transition. It really talks about, let's keep a higher perspective. Let's stay grateful for what we have. Let's not get caught up in the BS, the drama. Like, let it go. It's too heavy. We can't take it with us where we're going, you know? We don't want to take the heaviness up the mountain. We don't. And it's really about also going deep and seeing what things maybe we still have to work on. But in the darkness, we always will find the light. And then we have Kairos. So this card is all about divine timing, which I love, obviously. So it talks about there's this other realm where time doesn't exist, and it's a linear realm, and it's all about divine timing. So it's not about keeping track of time. It's not about like, oh, this has to happen by this amount of time and I have to have this accomplished by the time I'm this age and, you know, blah, 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 blah. This is like the trajectory of my whole life. It talks about listening to your intuition and letting that be the guide of when the right time is to strike. Listen to your intuition, follow your gut. You will align at the perfect time. In divine timing. This talks about having patience. It's so important to have patience. Patience and persistence. And it's all about just doing things when the moment is right. You don't want to be too soon on it. It talks about ripe. I wrote this down because I thought it was so pretty. Wait, where is it? It says, where is it at? Here we go. The word evil comes from the root unripe, which I thought that was very interesting. Evil and unripe. Consider that everything has a time of ripeness, when it becomes a nourishing fruit, sweet to the lips. I love that. So it talks about we don't want to eat the fruit before it's ready. You know, you don't want to add the avocado. You don't want to cut the avocado if it's not ready. It's going to be hard. It's not going to taste good, you know? So it's all about knowing and having the patience to wait for the fruit to ripen so that when you take that first bite, it's going to taste so good. And your mouth is going to be agape because you're going to be in awe of how good it tastes because you waited for the perfect moment and you waited for the right moment. You listened to your intuition, you trusted your gut, and you waited till the perfect moment. And it's going to taste so good and so sweet because you did. And then the last, Eros. So this card, oops, goes this way. Lips right there. This card talks about desire. It talks about eroticism, sensuality, the root of desire itself. And it talks about what do we long for? What are we longing for? Is it to be loved by another person? You know? Like, why do we have this longing, this primal longing inside of us to merge with another human being? Or if it's nature, or music, or art, or plants, whatever it is. It talks about otherness, you know? Connecting with others in order to connect with ourselves through that. So interesting. It talks about sensuality and play as well. And I think that's important, is like exploring, being curious, you know, keeping a beginner's mind, staying open and curious, and yeah, being open to go into new territory, to do things that you haven't done before. Stay open to it, because who knows, you could find a whole new passion that you didn't even know you had. You know? It talks about staying open to love and curious in love's labyrinth. And you think about a labyrinth, it's like a maze, you know? And you need to be curious to be in a maze. Sometimes you go down a road and you're like, oh, wait, this is the wrong way. Let's go back over here. What if we try, you know, that way? Like, the universe is reminding you to just stay open, stay curious, be playful. You know, everything can be so serious sometimes. Like, you know, everything can feel so serious. This is just saying, yeah, you have a longing. You have a longing for something more. You feel it. It's a primal urge. It's a primal energy. We all do. But what is driving us? You know, what is the root of that? Why do we want love? Why are we awakened by love? Why are we drawn to the things that we're drawn to? I think that has a lot to do with this card too. It's like getting down to like the root, to the deeper meaning, of it all. Taking that higher perspective, that higher wisdom that we have when we give things space. I think giving space is super important. Space and patience, detaching and being patient. When the time is right, you will know. You will feel it. And that fruit is going to taste so delicious. You're going to be so happy that you waited for the perfect moment. Yeah. That was a fun message. Thank you so much. Give me a like, a subscribe, a comment. I would love to hear your thoughts if that resonated. Take what resonated, leave what didn't. And yeah, we'll see you next time.